We're learning more tonight about a described murder squad in Salinas. A now unsealed federal indictment shows a group of gang members are behind a series of orchestrated shootings in Salinas from January 2017 to late 2018. A U.S. prosecutor announced today the men were on the hunt for rival gang members, but as you just heard, their victims were largely innocent. Thanks for being here at 11 o'clock. I'm Aaron Groff. Local and federal authorities say this group terrorized the streets of Salinas for about 2 years. The charges were announced today, but the suspects, most of them are already in jail for other accused crimes, but now all of them are in custody. These suspected gang members indicted by the U.S. Attorney's Office are Siaki Tavale, Anelu Tavale, Andrew Alvarado, John Magat, Anthony Valdez, Mark Anthony Garcia. All of them between the ages of 23 and 33. And they're all being charged with racketeering, conspiracy, murder, and other crimes. This map shows where each of the 7 shootings took place. They're said to have operated in a caravan and filed every bullet in their weapon. KION's Josh Cristianto is live for us in Salinas tonight. Josh, you spoke with a local murder victims advocate. So what does she say this all means?
Well, that's right, Aaron. For Debbie Aguilar, who's a Salinas resident who actually became a victim's advocate after losing her son and nephew to gun violence years ago, today's news gives her hope that justice will be done.
They're all gunshot. All of these guys here were killed by guns.
Debbie Aguilar lost her son to gun violence almost 18 years ago in Salinas. It was 2002. Her son, Stephen Joseph Aguilar, just turned 18 and was getting snacks at a 7-Eleven on a Friday night. A vehicle with unknown passengers opened fire, killing him. The culprits are still at large. While Aguilar hasn't seen justice yet for her own family, she is thankful justice is here for others.
I know what it's like to feel that you don't know who did this. And wait for that phone call that somebody will finally, the police, somebody will say, you know what? We're not sure yet, but we may have something.
Since her son's murder, Aguilar has become an advocate for families who face the same thing she's faced. Murder victims spanning decades now plastered onto commemorative papers, remembering those lost to violence. Aguilar says many of these listed were not gang affiliated. Authorities say the victims of the murder squad announced Thursday were mistakenly identified as rival gang members. For the families, it could be a day they've been waiting for.
I'm sure what they're feeling is wow, maybe the pain is finally, it's lessening a little bit today.
The victims, John Rodzak, Fidencio Torres Vega, Rutilio Vega, Felix Alonso Francisco, Jose Luis Flores Vargas, Alejandro Ramirez, Gabriel Hernandez Rangel, and Sergio Carcamo may see some justice now. And perhaps that will provide some closure for those they left behind, even if the wounds never fully heal.
My spirit was so unrested before. But I want those families to know, all the families of the community, that lost loved ones to homicide. Let's keep our hope up and keep our faith up. And just knowing that justice doesn't always fail us.
And local authorities say none of this could have been possible without their partnerships with state and federal law enforcement agencies. Reporting live in Salinas, Josh Cristianto, KION News Channel 5.
A Salinas man will spend the next 50 years in prison after being found guilty in the 2017 Hebron Heights murder. The Monterey County District Attorney's Office says it was all part of a gang operation. 22-year-old Luis Ataide has been found guilty of killing a 39-year-old man for the benefit of the Norteno criminal street gang. In February 2017, Salinas police responded to the shooting. They say that's where they found the victim with multiple gunshot wounds. Authorities say the death was related to an ongoing investigation in which Norteno gang members would receive certification or formal acceptance for killing.
We want to go back to Salinas, where the murder rate is climbing. And this all comes on the heels of a major restructuring within the police department. So is it helping or hurting? Now here's Action News reporter Felix Cortez.
It's horrible. You know, we've had our 35th homicide. It's unprecedented in a city our size.
Salinas, a city dealing with an escalating record number of murders, and a police chief trying to keep a city safe while dealing with an understaffed force.
Through the recession, the police department got torn down to bare bones, and it's taking a long time to build it back up. Right now, we're not even doing a really good job of responding to 911 calls. That's why we brought everybody back to patrol, just to fulfill that basic function.
This past summer, Chief Kelly McMillan restructured his entire department in an effort to get more officers on the streets and cut down on overtime. The move came with the price, the end of the Joint Gang Task Force, no school resource officers, and the only PAL officer went back to patrol. Some now wondering whether the move has led to the city's record number of homicides. The chief says the restructuring was a difficult decision, but one that had to be made.
See, this is the problem. There's nothing to rethink about this restructure. I don't have the bodies. My only choice to put a gang unit on the street right now would be to pull bodies out of patrol. That means if someone calls 911 tonight for a real emergency, I may not have a police officer send to them. And that's not an option for us.
Once he gets his people back up to staff, I foresee him putting units back together. We'll be putting officers back into the neighborhood programs such as Hebron, Acosta Plaza.
The chief currently has 133 officers, but has 28 vacancies to fill. 8 officers are currently going through the academy and should be on the force next month. But if the chief wants to bring back special gang units, he's going to need more officers. McMillan says a lot of people want to be cops, but only a few have the qualifications.
So the hiring process is difficult, but I would rather run short of police officers than start taking chances on marginal candidates and potentially letting a bad police officer slip through the cracks, make it out onto the street where they could do some real damage in our community. That won't happen while I'm...
Police in Salinas have arrested an additional gunman in connection with the 2018 fatal drive-by shooting. Investigators say they believe the 22-year-old Sansoni Tumalakti was one of 4 shooters involved in the death of 43-year-old Felix Francisco. Police say the victim was the last known person murdered by a group of 6 gang members who reportedly dubbed themselves the Murder Squad and went on 7 hunts through East Salinas between 2017 and 2018. During that time, 8 people were killed.
What's going on, you guys? Welcome back. Another episode of Greenlit Gang TV. Appreciate you guys checking out the channel. We're going back to a familiar spot. We're going to be going to Salinas Valley, California. We're going to be covering the Norteno Gang. An infamous case that picked up steam a few years ago. A federal indictment came down. A legit Norteño murder squad that was put together at the direction of the Nuestra Familia, which is basically the top dogs in the prison system, right up there with La M, right up there with Mexican Mafia. They are rivals. Nortenos, Sureno. So the Nortenos answer to the NF, the Nuestra Familia, and you've got the Surenos who answer to, the Mexican Mafia. Now, this was going on January 2017 to late 2018. The defendants in this case, originally it started with about 6-7 guys. It grew to 11, and the scope of this case was broad, and the amount of murders committed was a lot. So, San Francisco, a federal grand jury has indicted, this is initially, 6 Salinas-based street gang members, charging them with racketeering, conspiracy, use of a firearm causing murder, and related crimes, announced United States Attorney David L. Anderson. Homeland Security Investigation Special Agent in charge Tatum King, and Federal Bureau of Investigation Special Agent in charge John F. Bennett. The charges were announced Wednesday at a press conference. So it was a joint task force, right? You've got the Homeland Security Investigations, FBI, and you'll see this a lot, okay? And they'll deal with local law enforcement as well, because local law enforcement is very tapped into the street. Local law enforcement knows active gang members. They know who's calling the shots. They know who's kind of maybe just a foot soldier or someone not so important. They also know guys lurking in the shadows, the big dogs lurking in the shadows that these government guys don't know about. The defendants are Siaki Tavale, remember that name? Andrew Alvarado. Siaki Tavale is 24 years old. Andrew Alvarado was 29. John Magat, 33, Anthony Valdez, 23, and Mark Anthony Garcia, 29, and Anilu Tavale, 24. And that looks like a relative of Siake Tavale. According to the second superseding indictment filed October 15th, 2020, unsealed today, the defendants were members of a violent hit crew, also referred to as, quote, the murder squad. The indictment describes how the murder squad orchestrated 7 shootings, killing 8 people and injuring several others. According to the indictment, 7 of the 8 homicide victims had no known gang affiliation. And this is what I wanted to focus on for a second. Because it says, well, we're going after Surenos. And in the public eye, it's like, well, gang members killing gang members. Who cares? No. Even when it is gang members killing gang members, it's still not okay. But a lot of times you justify it in your head, right? As a citizen, you go, hey, you know what? You asked for this life. That's what happens. No, they were killing innocent people. It's like so many cases I see out of Salinas Valley and other places in California and all around the country, as a matter of fact. It's a freaking war zone. And it's like, people need to pay attention more to this stuff, guys. Go online, read these indictments. It is crazy, the amount of innocent lives that get lost, the amount of families that are ripped apart. And that's what the U.S. attorney said, right? Anderson said, this violence destroys lives. This violence holds our community hostage. In announcing today's charges, we reaffirm the importance of professional law enforcement. We need professional law enforcement to protect the community where we live and work and raise our families. Then the murder squad did grow. It does grow to 11 people across both federal and state courts. So the case was already going on with the first initial defendants. Now, the murder squad, quote, they formed a caravan of death targeting Surenos, and at least 2, and how they would do this, right? At least 2 vehicles would serve as lookouts, while a third contained the gunman, according to a federal indictment unsealed in October. The arrests of Ryan Meza and Joseph Garcia, 25 years old, in mid-February on suspicion of shooting 4 people at a house party, killing 2 of them, added 2 more defendants to the case. So that's how we're getting up to 11. They just kept adding people, more investigations, more time. It kept getting bigger. Authorities also believe there may be more homicide victims connected to at least one defendant. Now, remember the first name I told you, Siake Tavale. At the trial of a defendant in an unrelated case, it came out, Salinas detective said, and a gang expert, Byron Ganson, so he's a detective and a gang expert, testified that Siake Tavale, 24 years old, was the alleged ringleader of the murder squad and is suspected of at least 15 homicides between 2015 and 2017. Remember in the beginning, I said the murder squad, quote, started in the beginning of 17. So this guy was picking up bodies 2 years before the squad was even formed. So, and it kind of makes sense. If he's out there committing a lot of these murders and these crimes, and he starts bringing in his codies, he starts bringing in friends, fellow gang members on what he's doing. Because the thing is, in the gang world, and please comment down below, but one of the biggest ways to get respect, and I feel like the biggest way, get bodies, man. If you are the most violent, if you stand out as a very violent person amongst very violent people, that is a way to build your name in the street. And if you can comment down below, if any of you guys can attest to this, if I'm speaking right now, and any of you are listening that are gang members, are fellow gang members, are locked up, not locked up, comment, man. I love corresponding with you guys. It's just crazy, though, that 24 years old, they thought he had 15 bodies. It just goes on to say how this kind of gang atmosphere, this kind of gang environment literally brings terror to the citizens. And you see why they have the respect they have. They just take it. They're not going to ask for respect. They're going to come, stick a gun in your face, and what are you going to do? You're going to blink? Who's going to blink first? And a lot of times, it's the civilians. And like I said, these first 8 murders that came out, 7 of them weren't even Sureno gang members. So it's like at some point, it's like, were they that off on like the intelligence they were gathering? I don't think so. I think it was more just, we're going to go out and we're going to raise hell. We're going to pick up bodies. If we think someone might be a rival, we're just going to shoot. We're going to shoot first, ask questions later. The indictment goes on to explain that a group of violent Norteno street gang members and others coordinated and executed missions to hunt and kill rival Sureno street gang members, or those the group perceived to be Surenos. That's what I just said. Even if they thought you were, Like I said, shoot first, ask questions later. In the neighborhoods of Salinas, California, the indictment describes murder squad's use of multi-vehicle caravans that often included one vehicle with designated shooters and at least one spotter or security vehicle to help spot victims and avoid law enforcement detection. And you see this with the other video I did on Johnny Soldier Boy Magdaleno, how he would be the guy coming in doing the stabbings, and then he'd have two bombers, guys coming in kicking and punching. These guys are smart, man. These NF members, there's a reason they're NF members. There's a reason they're calling the shots, and there's a reason they're having certain people do it. These street gang members, they're smart. They are not dumb. Do not get it confused. They are not dumb. They know what they're doing. They're well-spoken. They have personality traits that successful people have. To write them off as just dumb or addicts or just losers, you're wrong. You are, and you're underestimating them. And that is deadly to underestimate them, especially if you live in a high gang traffic area. You know, you need to stay safe. You need to be aware. This is part of the reason I do these videos. I also do these videos because it's very interesting, but you better be aware. So, at least use a spotter or security vehicle to help spot victims and avoid law enforcement detection. The indictment describes that the murder squad identified victims by characteristics they associated with rival Surenos. For example, Hispanic males, persons with shaved heads, and or persons wearing blue. Now, I've gotten really good at distinguishing Nortenos, Surenos. Even me, as a white person, I feel like when I see a gang member, even if they don't have their colors on, I can tell you that's a Norteno. I can tell you that's a Sureno. Not always, and I'm not saying I'm the best at it, but I feel like I'm pretty good at it. They will dress a certain way. They're going to wear certain things. They're going to, even I feel like mannerisms. It's just what it is. So, once a victim was targeted, the shooters would allegedly fire until their firearm magazines were emptied. The indictment alleges that some shooters hit up their victims or confirmed their gang status before shooting them, but that members of the murder squad did not always do this and did not always wait for an answer. Shoot first, ask questions later. The indictment alleges that the practice led to the shooting and killing of victims who were not, in fact, gang members. The indictment further alleges that the more bodies accumulated by a murder squad member, the higher his status conferred on that member. Guys, that's what I was just telling you, right? The more bodies, the more respect, the more power, the more money, the more girls, the more everything. And then when you finally go to prison, which is this what I'm trying to make you guys understand this is a goal of a street gang member in the Norteno Gang and the Sureno Gang. Then you come in there with a rep, you come in there with respect, then you can get into the NF and become a high-ranking official, and you're laid back. You're chilling, man. You're chilling. Your family's taken care of. You got money out on the street. You got girls. You got whatever. You got guards that are corrupt, prison officials that are corrupt to do your bidding. It's a crazy, crazy underbelly, guys. It's a crazy, crazy subculture, but it exists, and it's real. And these guys thrive. So I'm going to read about a couple cases right now. The indictment specifically provides descriptions of a couple hunts in Salinas that culminated in injury and death between January 2017 and November 2018. On January 12, 2017, Siake Tavale, Alvarado Garcia, and others went hunting for rival gang members to kill. Their hunt led them to Sunrise Street and to a group of Hispanic men outside a house party. The shooters opened fire at the group. 4 victims were shot, 2 were killed. So that's the house party we're talking about. There was no evidence the victims were actually gang members. After the shooting, the shooters led police officers on a high-speed chase, crashed and abandoned their vehicle and fled on foot. About a month later, on February 11, 2017, again, Siake Tavale, Alvarado, and others again went hunting. So, interestingly enough, it looks like that foot chase, they got away. They got away because 29 days later, they're out hunting again. This time, the co-defendants encountered a small group of Hispanic men outside the Hebron Heights Community Center. The shooters fired at least 18 shots at the men, striking one victim in the head and killing him. The shooters were driving in a stolen SUV that had been doused in gasoline earlier that day as a precaution in case it needed to be set on fire. So again, smart. They're thinking. The next day, so February 12th, again, Siake Tavale and Alvarado were joined by Analulu Tavale and others as they again hunted for rival Sureno gang members to kill. The group was driving in the same stolen SUV as the day before when they encountered 2 Hispanic men in another vehicle. The defendants perceived the men in the other vehicle to be rival Sureno gang members and followed the vehicle to a residence on Orchard Avenue. After the vehicle pulled into the driveway, the shooters opened fire. The shooters fired at least 20 shots at the 2 victims. The victims survived but suffered gunshot wounds to the neck, torso, and upper back. It's crazy, dude. It's crazy. It's just... And the very last one we're going to be talking about, we're going to be going to November 3rd, And on November 3rd, 2018, again, Valdez, Analu Tavali, and others again went hunting for rival Sureno gang members to kill. Now, the reason they did this was to commemorate the birthday of a deceased gang member. The shooters spotted a man walking on North Hebron Avenue and fired at least 35 shots at him. The victim was shot in the head and killed. Again, no evidence that the victim was actually a gang member. There was another one, though. Really, I know I said this is the last one. Just one more. Maga, Valdez, Analu Tavali, and others again went hunting for rival members to kill. They spotted a man walking down Center Street, fired 19 shots and killed him. And then again, no evidence. So it's like I'm reading this and I'm like, holy crap, man. That is so dangerous if you're Hispanic and you're young and maybe you have a certain haircut. They were dumping clips, magazines on you. And it sounded like they weren't missing. It sounded like they had pretty good aim. Shot in the head, dead. Or they were just shooting so many times you couldn't help but hit your target. So you see why the feds come in. You see why state cases come in. And this is one of those cases where it's like, dude, you know, sometimes I have sympathy for certain gang members. I have sympathy for people that come from certain disadvantaged backgrounds. But in this case, man, you're a serial killer. I feel like you're a serial killer. And I want you guys to comment below. This is a really good question that I've seen on different channels. Would you consider someone like Siake Tavali a serial killer with 15 plus bodies? Do you consider him or any of these other guys? Serial killer definition is 3+ bodies. Okay. Would you consider these guys with 3+ bodies serial killers? Please comment down below. That's the question of the day. Do you consider them and other gang members with multiple bodies serial killers? You guys, thank you. Much love. Until next time. Peace.